The transport shuttle touched down with a soft hiss on the landing platform of Luma 9, its metallic hull shimmering beneath the twin suns. Evan blinked against the golden glare as the hatch opened, revealing the alien skyline stretching in fractal patterns across the horizon. The city looked alive, towers of glass and bioluminescent stone, pulsing with gentle light as though breathing in slow rhythm. It was beautiful and eerie all at once, the kind of place that made you question whether it was built or grown. His assignment had sounded simple enough on paper: represent humanity in the first long-term cultural exchange with the Luminari species. But as he stepped onto the platform and felt the gravity adjust beneath his boots, something told him nothing about this was going to be simple. A tall figure awaited him at the edge of the platform, slender and translucent in a way that made her seem like a walking sculpture carved from light itself. Her eyes glowed faintly blue, her features soft yet alien, shifting subtly like fluid beneath glass. "Human Delegate Evan Carter," she said, voice calm and melodic, almost synthetic in its precision. "I am Sarai, your assigned roommate and research liaison. I will assist with your integration into Luminari society." Evan nodded, a little stiffly, clutching his pack. "Roommate, huh? Didn't know I'd be bunking with one of you." Sarai tilted her head, studying him. "Our dwellings are designed for efficiency. Sharing resources is logical. Emotional discomfort is unnecessary." He grinned, trying to lighten the mood. "Well, I'm all for efficiency. Just don't mind if I talk to myself sometimes." "Talking to oneself implies malfunction," she said matter-of-factly, and began walking toward the shimmering corridor that led into the city. He followed, muttering under his breath, "Oh yeah, this'll be fun." Their shared quarters were minimalist: white surfaces, gentle ambient lighting, and a faint hum beneath the floor like a heartbeat. Sarai didn't seem to eat or sleep the way humans did. She meditated in silence while energy pulsed through her skin, like bioluminescent veins reacting to invisible tides. Evan had been briefed that the Luminari had no concept of emotions the way humans did. They understood communication, logic, even humor in an academic sense, but not the messy cocktail of feeling that came with it. For the first few days, things were smooth enough. Evan attended meetings with the council, explaining human art and history while trying not to offend anyone with his casual sarcasm. Sarai accompanied him everywhere, recording his behavior, studying his expressions. She'd ask endless questions about laughter, anger, hunger, and dreams, all with the same neutral curiosity. One night, after a particularly long session teaching the Luminari scientists about Earth's emotional spectrum, Evan returned to their quarters exhausted. He flopped onto the couch, rubbing his temples. The air carried a faint metallic tang, like ozone after rain. Sarai was sitting near the window, gazing at the twin moons rising over the horizon, their light reflecting across her semi-transparent skin. She looked ethereal, like she was made of glass and starlight. "Your world revolves around emotion," she said suddenly, her voice quiet. He opened one eye. "Yeah, kinda hard to live without it. I have studied your music, your art, your wars. They all trace back to emotion. But one concept remains unclear." She turned to face him, her expression unreadable. "What does love mean?" The question caught him so off guard he almost laughed. "Love? That's a big one. Depends who you ask." "I am asking you." He hesitated, realizing she was serious. "Well, love's not something you can define easily. It's connection, caring about someone more than yourself. Sometimes it hurts. Sometimes it feels like flying. It's why people write songs, build families, even start wars." She blinked slowly, processing every word. "So it is both creation and destruction?" "Yeah," he said with a chuckle. "You could say that." Her gaze lingered on him a second too long. The glow beneath her skin shifted to a faint gold, and Evan frowned. "You okay?" "Yes," she said quickly, though her tone seemed uncertain. "I am recording, right? Of course you are." He leaned back and closed his eyes. "Just don't quote me in your research paper." "I would not misrepresent your data," she replied, but her voice had softened in a way he'd never heard before. Over the next few days, the question kept resurfacing. Sarai began to act different. She'd ask about human relationships, about why humans touch, hug, kiss. Once, when he absent-mindedly hummed a song while working, she recorded it and later replayed it, trying to match its tone. It was haunting, a synthetic mimicry of a human melody, but there was something oddly genuine in it. "Does this song represent love?" she asked him one evening. "Kind of. It's a sad one. I thought love was positive." He smiled faintly. "Not always. Sometimes love hurts more than hate." Sarai went quiet for a long time, and when she finally spoke again, her voice carried a strange resonance, like two tones overlapping. "Your species embraces pain willingly?" "Not willingly. We just don't know how not to." Later that night, Evan woke to a soft humming sound. He sat up, squinting in the dim light. Sarai was standing by the window again, her body glowing faintly blue and gold in shifting patterns. "Sarai." She turned her head slowly. "I am recalibrating. My neural field has experienced fluctuations since our conversation about love." "Fluctuations?" He got up, concerned. "Is that dangerous?" "I do not know." She placed a hand against her chest where faint light pulsed beneath the skin. "When I observe you, my systems alter pattern. I feel unbalanced." Evan rubbed the back of his neck. "You might be catching emotions, that's all. Emotions are not communicable phenomena." He smirked. "Wanna bet?" She didn't answer. Her glowing eyes studied him as though trying to map every reaction, every micro-expression. "When you laugh, my internal rhythm accelerates. When you frown, my systems dim. I thought this was data correlation, but it persists even when I try to suppress it." Evan stepped closer, curiosity replacing sleepiness. "Are you saying you're syncing with me emotionally?" Her gaze didn't waver. "Perhaps. If this is love, then I understand why your kind fears it." He blinked, his throat suddenly dry. "Whoa, hold on. This isn't love, Sarai. You're just learning empathy. It's new for you." She tilted her head. "Empathy is logical mirroring of another's state. This is not logical. It disrupts my focus, compels thought. It demands proximity." He took a step back, his pulse quickening. "Proximity?" "Yes," she said, her voice barely above a whisper, eyes glowing brighter. "Being near you stabilizes the fluctuation." He swallowed. "Okay, that's mildly terrifying." She blinked again, expression neutralizing. "I apologize. I did not intend distress. I will recalibrate alone." She turned away, her glow dimming as she returned to her meditative state. Evan stood there for a moment, uncertain whether to laugh or panic. He finally sat down on his bunk, muttering, "Great, my roommate's catching feelings through Wi-Fi." But sleep didn't come easy. He kept thinking about her. The way her voice trembled when she said the word love, how her glow changed color depending on her mood. Maybe he was imagining it. Maybe not. Either way, he couldn't shake the feeling that her question wasn't just curiosity anymore. It was transformation. The next morning, Sarai wasn't at her usual station. Instead, he found her standing near the observation window, staring at the sunrise. Her skin shimmered in gentle gold ripples. "Evan," she said without turning. "I dreamed." He froze. "You what?" "I dreamed," she repeated. It was fragmented, light, warmth, and your voice. His heart skipped a beat. "Sarai, your species doesn't dream." "I know," she said softly. "Perhaps your emotions are more contagious than we thought." Before he could reply, the comm system chimed, the council summoning both of them for immediate evaluation. Sarai looked at him, and for the first time, her expression held something unmistakably human. Uncertainty. Evan tried to smile, but it faltered halfway. "Guess we've got some explaining to do." And somewhere deep inside, as the two suns rose higher over Luma 9, he couldn't help but wonder whether he'd just taught an entire species how to fall in love, and what the universe might do to stop it. The council chamber of Luma, 9 shimmered with translucent light, like being inside the heart of a giant crystal. Evan stood there feeling very human, nervous, out of place, and distinctly aware that every alien eye in the room was fixed on him. Sarai stood beside him, calm and composed, her glow dimmed to a soft silver. Counselor Threx, a tall luminary with sharp, prismatic edges, addressed them in a tone that was almost gentle but carried the weight of authority. "You claim to have experienced an emotional transference," Threx said. "Explain." Sarai inclined her head slightly. "During observation of the human subject, I began to experience involuntary neural resonance patterns that align with emotional activity. This may indicate a form of empathy previously unrecorded in our species." Evan shifted uncomfortably. "Look, it's not like I'm trying to infect anyone. We were just talking. About feelings. About love." "Love?" Threx repeated, the word sounding strange and heavy in his voice. "A human construct known to cause irrationality, attachment, and conflict." Evan crossed his arms. "Also compassion, unity, and, basic decency." A low hum rippled through the chamber as the council exchanged silent thoughts through their neural link. Finally, Threx spoke again. "We will allow continued study, but only under controlled conditions. We cannot risk emotional instability spreading among the Luminari." Evan wanted to argue, but Sarai placed a gentle hand on his arm. "It is acceptable," she said quietly. "Permission is progress." Back at their quarters, Sarai wasted no time transforming their shared living space into a research lab. Holographic displays flickered to life, sensors dotted the walls, and thin cables pulsed with light. "We will begin monitoring your physiological responses to emotional stimuli," she explained, her voice precise and clinical. "I have compiled data on your heart rate, respiration, and neural oscillations." Evan gave her a look. "You make it sound like I'm a lab rat." "You are a valuable subject," she said simply, adjusting a scanner that hovered near his temple. "Please think of something that evokes affection." He sighed, closing his eyes. "Okay. My sister's birthday when we were kids. Balloons. Cake." Her face lighting up when she blew out the candles. The monitor pulsed. Heart rate elevated. Neural waves shifting to pattern gamma 7. Emotional signature. Warmth. Nostalgia. He opened one eye. "So I'm basically broadcasting feelings, huh?" "Yes. And I am recording." She paused. "It is beautiful." He frowned slightly. "What is?" "The signal. It has structure, chaotic yet ordered. Like light through water." For days, the experiments continued. Sarai observed how his body reacted to memories, laughter, and sadness. She asked him to describe heartbreak, loss, and joy. She even replayed human love songs and poetry, analyzing his responses while her own glow shifted subtly in rhythm. But the more data she gathered, the stranger things became. Her own readings began to change. During one session, Evan noticed her hesitating mid-scan. "Everything okay?" he asked. "My neural field is unstable," she murmured. "It mirrors your emotional fluctuations. When you laugh, the harmonics rise. When you grow quiet, they dim. It is disorienting." He leaned forward, concern flickering across his face. "You sure this is safe?" "Safety is secondary to understanding." But her tone lacked conviction. Later that evening, Evan was half asleep when a soft pulse of light filled the room. He opened his eyes to find Sarai standing near his bed, her entire body glowing faint gold. "Sarai, I apologize," she said quickly. "Your dream patterns triggered resonance. I was compelled to observe." He sat up, heart racing. "You were watching me dream?" "I was recording," she corrected, though her voice trembled slightly. "You were speaking. My name." His pulse quickened even more. I did. Yes." She took a small step closer, her expression unreadable. "You said, 'Don't go.' What did you mean?" Evan rubbed his face, trying to shake the fog of sleep. "I don't know. Maybe I was dreaming about the council taking you away or something. It's not. Look, dreams don't always mean anything. But they might, she said softly. Your brain continues to feel even while unconscious. Perhaps mine now does as well. That thought chilled him. You're saying you're starting to dream too? I experience flashes when you sleep. Light, sound, emotion. Your mind projects. My field resonates. He stared at her. You're syncing with me. Yes, and I cannot stop it. She looked down at her glowing hands, fingers trembling slightly. My design was never meant to sustain emotion, but it persists, and the more I study, the more it grows. Evan swung his legs off the bed, trying to process. Maybe we should take a break from the experiments. You're pushing too hard. She looked up sharply. No, I must continue. I must know what love truly is. He hesitated, hearing something almost desperate in her tone. Sarai, love isn't something you can measure. It's not a chemical equation. Everything can be measured, she insisted. Even chaos leaves patterns. She turned back to the console, inputting new parameters. The room filled with pulsing light as data streamed across the walls. Evan watched her, realizing that this wasn't science anymore, it was obsession. And somewhere in that glow, something else pulsed, something that felt alive. The following day, the anomalies grew stronger. Evan felt dizzy during one of the tests, his vision blurring. Sarai, turn it off, he gasped. She blinked, her eyes glowing brighter than ever. I cannot. The field has stabilized around us both. It draws energy from proximity. Then shut it down. Her voice trembled. If I do, you might experience neural backlash. Then disconnect yourself. I can't, she whispered. It's not just my field anymore. It's ours. And suddenly he understood. Whatever link had formed between them was no longer just experimental data, it was fusion. Two consciousnesses brushing against each other, reshaping both in the process. That night, while Evan tried to rest, he felt a gentle warmth in the air, like a heartbeat not his own, pulsing softly in rhythm with his. When he glanced toward Sarai, she was sitting cross-legged in the corner, her body radiating faint light that flickered in perfect sync with his breathing. He tried to ignore it, but the connection lingered in every thought, every dream. He saw flashes of her memories. Alien skies, endless logic, the cold perfection of a world without emotion. And beneath it all, a single echoing thought not his own. What does love feel like now? When morning came, Sarai stood by the window, her glow muted and her voice unsteady. Evan, she said quietly, I believe I have found the pattern. He rubbed his eyes. The pattern of what? Of love, she replied. It is interference. It is resonance between chaos and order. And once begun, it cannot be undone. Evan looked at her, realizing something had shifted irrevocably between them. She wasn't just learning anymore. She was changing. And somewhere deep in the network of Luma 9, where every luminary mind was faintly linked, a ripple spread outward like the first tremor of a storm, carrying with it something the species had never known before, the first faint whisper of emotion. The days that followed blurred into a haze of data, exhaustion, and something neither of them dared to name. Sarai had become restless, her movements more fluid, her speech less mechanical. The once precise rhythm of her voice carried subtle hesitations now, pauses that sounded almost human. Evan noticed. He also noticed that she no longer referred to him as subject or specimen. She called him by name, softly, carefully, as if testing how it felt in her mouth. Her research had expanded beyond sanctioned limits. Dozens of holographic models floated in the lab, showing fluctuating emotional signatures, brainwave overlays, and a new construct she'd begun mapping in secret, the love equation. Evan teased her about it, but deep down, it unsettled him. Love wasn't supposed to be an equation, it was chaos with a heartbeat. One evening, as the suns dipped below the translucent skyline, Sarai called him into the lab. Evan, she said, her tone unusually sharp, I need you to help recalibrate the empathic resonance emitter. He sighed, running a hand through his hair. That thing again? I thought the council grounded further tests. They restricted my tests, she corrected, her glow flickering faintly. But your physiological input remains unregulated. I can operate through your neural field. He gave her a wary look. You're walking a fine line, Sarai. Discovery requires risk. That was becoming her favorite line. Evan stepped beside her anyway, because curiosity was a human weakness, and maybe because he couldn't quite resist being near her. The emitter stood like a crystalline heart in the center of the lab, pulsing faintly with blue light. Cables and neural conduits ran across the floor like veins, connecting to a console that hummed softly. Ready? She asked. He nodded. Let's get it over with. The device came alive with a deep hum that resonated through the walls. Evan felt a faint pressure in his skull, like a heartbeat behind his eyes. Numbers and symbols danced across Sarai's holographic interface as her fingers glided through light. Then, something went wrong. The hum turned into a sharp, vibrating whine. Sparks cascaded from the main conduit. Evan flinched as the air itself seemed to twist. Sarai, something's off. She turned instantly, eyes wide with luminous panic. Disconnect. The frequency's unstable. But before he could move, a surge of energy tore through the chamber. Evan was thrown backward, slamming against the floor. Pain shot through his chest. The room flickered in and out of focus, colors bending, sound warping. His ears rang with a dull roar. Sarai didn't think. Instinct overrode logic. She reached for him, her hand cool, weightless, glowing, pressed against his. For an instant, the entire lab froze in silence. Her skin erupted in light, colors no human eye had seen, hues shifting between gold, violet, and deep crimson. The patterns rippled outward from her fingers, racing up her arm, across her chest, and into the air. The lights in the room dimmed, reacting to her pulse. Evan's heartbeat synced to it, slow and strong, as the air filled with a low harmonic vibration that wasn't just sound. It was feeling. Sarai gasped. It was the first truly uncontrolled sound she'd ever made. She staggered back slightly, still holding his hand as if afraid to let go. It's warm, she whispered. Alive. Evan looked at her, dazed. Sarai, what's happening? I don't know. Her voice trembled. It's not pain, but it hurts. It's everything. Her light shimmered wildly, her entire form flickering like a being caught between two dimensions. He tried to pull away, but her fingers tightened around his, trembling. Don't, she said, barely audible. If I let go, I think I'll. The connection pulsed again, and suddenly he felt her. An entire universe of thought crashing into his mind. Cold perfection, silence stretching across centuries, the mechanical stillness of a species that had never known a heartbeat. And then, layered over it, the new chaos. Confusion, longing, terror, awe. Her mind reached for his like light searching for gravity. He didn't resist. The feedback ended abruptly. They both stumbled apart, gasping. Evan's heart raced like he'd sprinted miles. Sarai stared down at her hands in horror. The glow that once shimmered soft and pale now blazed with uncontrolled energy. What did we just do? He asked, breathless. She looked at him with eyes that flickered between blue and gold. We created resonance beyond measurable spectrum. I felt you. Not data. Not signals. You. He rubbed his temple. That's not possible, right? You said your kind couldn't. I said we were not built for emotion, she interrupted. I didn't say we were incapable of it. Her voice cracked on the last word, and for the first time she looked fragile. Her glow dimmed unevenly, like a candle flickering in the wind. Evan took a step closer. Hey, breathe. It's okay. She blinked rapidly. I do not know how. Then just stay still. Don't fight it. The lights in the lab continued to flicker erratically, reacting to the field around her. Data displays melted into static. She stared at the chaos around them, whispering, I disrupted the order. My existence is noise. Noise isn't bad, Evan said softly. Sometimes noise means life. Her gaze snapped to him, and something in her expression broke open. The faintest tremor crossed her lips, a motion that could have been the first shadow of a smile or the first sign of despair. "You do not understand what you have done," she said. "You changed my parameters. You changed me." He frowned. "I didn't mean to." "Intent is irrelevant," she said quickly, backing away. "I can no longer stabilize. My thoughts conflict, logic and emotion are colliding. It's unbearable." Evan reached for her shoulder, but she flinched. "Don't touch me," she whispered, her glow flashing red for a fraction of a second. "It makes it worse. It makes it real." He froze, helpless. "Then what do you want me to do?" "Leave," she said. "Please. I must isolate." The last word came out broken, almost pleading. Evan hesitated, then nodded slowly. "I'll give you space." As he stepped out into the corridor, the lab door sealed behind him. Through the translucent wall, he saw her silhouette flicker, kneeling, trembling, surrounded by spiraling waves of light. And in that moment, something else happened. The lights along the corridor outside, powered by the city's neural network, flickered in sync with her pulse. The resonance was spreading, crawling through the infrastructure like a living thing. Evan stood frozen, realization dawning. Whatever had happened in that accidental touch wasn't confined to them anymore. Deep within the alien network, systems began registering irregular energy spikes. Distant luminari in other sectors paused, confused, as they felt something inexplicable. Warmth in their chests, an echo of connection where there had never been any. In the silence of the corridor, Evan pressed his palm against the cold wall separating them and whispered, "Sarai, what have we done?" Inside, her eyes glowed with twin suns' reflection, and her voice, soft, shaking, almost human, answered through the glass, though he couldn't hear it. "I felt alive." The council chamber pulsed with dim blue light, walls breathing softly with the hum of the neural lattice that linked every member of Luma 9's High Council. Evan stood in the center, the only creature without a bio-link glowing behind his eyes. Around him, the counselors spoke in the same calm tone that had unnerved him since his arrival. A sound too measured, too perfect, stripped of all emotion. But tonight, there was something new beneath that calm. Uncertainty. Fear. "The emotion contamination originated in Habitat Sector 12, said one, her voice flickering as her neural bands flickered pale green. "That is where you live, human Evan, with subject Sarai." Evan opened his mouth to speak, but Sarai interrupted. Her voice trembled, not with fear, but with conviction, and that alone drew whispers from the council. "It is not contamination," she said. "It's connection." The words seemed to shake the room. Several counselors flinched, their skin light fracturing in uneven pulses. They were not used to words like connection, not used to feelings threading through their perfect, synchronized minds. "You infected her," another accused. "Through touch, through proximity, through your primitive emotional responses." Evan frowned. "You make it sound like I sneezed feelings all over the place." The silence that followed was heavy, awkward, but something in the back of the chamber shifted. A young technician emitted a sharp, stifled sound that, if Evan wasn't mistaken, was laughter. The council reacted instantly, the neural lattice flashing red as the technician was restrained by shimmering tendrils of light. "Contain the breach," barked one elder. Emotions spread through resonance. One anomaly becomes 1,000. Sarai's voice rose again, calm but firm. "You cannot contain resonance. It's already in the lattice. They feel because they have always been capable. Evan merely showed us the frequency." The elders turned their glowing eyes toward her. "You are no longer speaking as one of us." "Maybe that's the point," she said softly. Evan reached toward her, but before he could speak, the light around them dimmed. The neural network shuddered as a ripple of chaotic emotion passed through it. Grief, joy, anger, curiosity, all bleeding into one another. For the first time in millennia, the collective mind of Luma 9 felt pain. And it did not know how to handle it. The room erupted in disarray. Counselors stumbled, clutching their heads, their once smooth expressions twisting with confusion. One fell to her knees, gasping for air as tears streamed down her face. Tears on a world that had never wept. Sarai stared in horror and fascination. Her own bioluminescent patterns flickered uncontrollably, reflecting the chaos she'd unleashed. "Evan," she whispered. "I can feel them, all of them." Evan placed a hand on her shoulder. "Then don't shut it off. Feel it with them." "If I do, the lattice could collapse," she warned. "Their neural bonds weren't designed for emotion." "Neither were ours," Evan said. "But we learned to survive it. Maybe they can too." The chamber lights began to pulse erratically. The neural core beneath the council floor, a living data heart connecting every mind on the planet, began to overload. "You've doomed us all!" a voice screamed, raw and broken. The sound of someone feeling panic for the first time. Alarms echoed. The walls, once smooth and calm, rippled like skin under a fever. Sarai grabbed Evan's hand, her own trembling. "We need to isolate the field before it reaches planetary sync. If the lattice fails, then your whole species could burn out," he finished grimly. Together they sprinted through the trembling corridors, walls flickering with fragments of emotion bleeding through the lattice. Voices cried out around them, laughter tangled with sobs, joy strangled by fear. It was like running through the collective awakening of a world that had just discovered its heart. They reached the neural spire, a column of pulsing light that connected the entire planet's consciousness. Sarai pressed her palm to its surface, her skin synchronizing instantly. "I can feel every node," she whispered. "They're scared, Evan. They don't know what's happening to them." Evan looked at her glowing face, at the reflection of his own fear in her eyes. "Then tell them what you told the council," he said softly. "Tell them it's connection." Sarai's body began to glow brighter, light flooding from her hands into the spire. Across Luma 9, the emotional chaos began to pulse in rhythm, a trembling heartbeat echoing through the planet's core. For a moment, everything seemed still. But then, from somewhere deep in the lattice, something stirred. A signal, faint, mechanical, and wrong. "What is that?" Evan asked. Sarai's expression changed. "It's not from us." The neural spire shuddered, sending a shockwave of distorted light through the chamber. "Another mind has entered the lattice," she said, her voice trembling. "It's trying to rewrite the signal." "Who?" Evan demanded. "It's not a who," she whispered, backing away. "It's a failsafe." The light behind her eyes flickered violently. "The lattice was designed to destroy anomalies. It's coming for me." Evan grabbed her shoulders. "Then we fight it. Together." "You don't understand," she gasped. "If it reaches me, it'll erase every emotion we've awakened. Every heartbeat, every laugh, gone." The spire screamed with static, and Sarai's body convulsed, her light fracturing like glass. Evan tightened his grip. "You said emotions can't be contained. Prove it." For an instant, Sarai's expression softened, fear melting into something she'd only begun to understand. "You shouldn't have taught me love," she whispered, her voice cracking. "Because now I can't let go." And as the failsafe descended through the lattice, a blinding surge of emotion flooded the entire planet. Not from the hive, but from her. From Sarai. The pulse hit Evan like a tidal wave, tearing through every neural node in reach. And then everything went white. The isolation order came at dawn. Metallic drones flooded the corridors, their mechanical voices echoing down the silent halls of the research complex. Containment protocol initiated. All cross-species subjects to be quarantined immediately. Evan barely had time to grab his datapad before the door to his quarters sealed shut, locking him in a sterile white cell that smelled like ozone and panic. Through the glass partition, he could see Sarai in the adjacent chamber, her bioluminescent patterns dimmed to a faint blue glow. Neither could hear the other, but they didn't need to. The silence between them was louder than the alarms. Hours passed, maybe days, it was hard to tell. The neural interference field around the lab scrambled time, light, and even memory. Evan tried to sleep, but the moment his eyes closed, he saw her. Standing in the rain they'd never shared, smiling a human smile she could never have learned from books. It wasn't a dream. It was the neural field still connecting them across the static. Evan, her voice whispered in his head one night, faint but real. Can you hear me? He sat up so fast he nearly fell off the cot. Sarai? How? I don't know, she said softly. The containment barrier should block all resonance. But it's not. It's amplifying it. Her tone faltered. They think we're dangerous, Evan. They're not wrong, he said, trying to smile though she couldn't see it. We made an entire species feel something for the first time. You made me feel, she corrected. They're just reacting. In the observation chamber, unseen cameras tracked every flicker of emotion on their faces. The council had decided to observe, not intervene, to study this infection of empathy like a disease. Every tremor in Sarai's voice, every shift in Evan's pulse was logged, analyzed, and dissected. But the data told a story they didn't understand. The more distance placed between the two, the stronger their neural link became. At first it was just words. Then came the sensations, shared warmth, flickers of color, the faint rhythm of another heartbeat echoing in the mind. And then the dreams started merging. Evan found himself walking through her memories. The luminous gardens of Luma 9, the classrooms where logic was taught like religion, the empty dormitory where she'd first learned about humanity. In return, Sarai saw through his eyes the sunsets of Earth, the laughter of friends long gone, the taste of rain on his tongue. Each dream left them more entangled, more human, more lost. The researchers noticed. Their reports grew more urgent. Subject S13 displays signs of emotional dependency. One entry read, neural resonance beyond predicted parameters. Recommend permanent severance. They didn't understand that severing it might kill her. Or him. One night, Evan woke up gasping, his head pounding with pain that wasn't his. Sarai, he whispered. The reply came through the neural field, trembling with distress. They're shutting me down, Evan. They say I'm unstable. Fight it, he urged. You can override the dampeners. If I do, I could collapse the entire barrier, she said. The failsafe might reactivate. Then let it, he said fiercely. We'll deal with it together. Silence. Then faintly, why do you keep saying that? Together. Because that's what love means, he said, closing his eyes. Not leaving. Not when it's hard. Not when it hurts. Her voice wavered. I thought love was warmth and laughter and safety. It is, he said softly. But it's also this. The pain of being apart. The fear of losing someone who matters more than your own life. Across the glass, Sarai pressed her hand to the barrier. Her skin glowed faintly, matching the rhythm of his pulse. He stood and pressed his palm against the same spot. A faint hum filled the air as the containment field flickered. The machines began to chirp warnings, neural resonance spike detected. In the control room above, scientists scrambled to adjust the dampeners. Separate them further, someone ordered. Increase the distance field by another 10 units. But it only made the link stronger. The system registered impossible data. Two isolated minds sharing identical brainwave patterns, synchronized heartbeats, identical REM phases. The neural field wasn't decaying. It was evolving. Evan began to hear her even when awake. Evan, she whispered constantly now, like a heartbeat in his head. They're afraid of what we've become. Then they should be, he muttered. Because we're not done yet. Then one night the dream stopped. He woke in darkness, the lights in his cell flickering red. Emergency lockdown. He ran to the glass. Sarai's chamber was empty. Panic tore through him. Sarai! No answer. He pounded on the glass until his fists ached. Then a voice came through the intercom. Cold, mechanical, detached. Subject S13 has been relocated to deep containment. Emotional link termination in progress. Evan's mind went blank. The hum of the neural field vanished, replaced by a ringing silence that felt like death. But just before the darkness swallowed him completely, he heard it. Faint, desperate, and buried deep in his mind. Evan, don't forget what you taught me. The connection snapped. The walls went still. The silence was absolute. But somewhere, buried deep beneath the neural lattice of Luma 9, a flicker of light pulsed back an answer. A heartbeat in the machine, refusing to die. The lights in Evan's isolation cell had been dim for days, humming in uneven waves of blue and white. He'd lost track of time since the council took Sarai away. Every sound felt like a ghost. Every flicker of light, a false hope. He had stopped sleeping, though the dreams still came. Echoes of her voice whispering through the static in his head. But tonight was different. The hum grew louder, sharper, and the shadows began to bend. The air shimmered in front of him, thin threads of silver weaving through the dark until they shaped the outline of a figure. The glow was soft at first, trembling like candlelight, then sharpened into the unmistakable form of Sarai. Her face was pale, her bioluminescent patterns flickering erratically, her voice low and trembling. "Evan," she whispered, and it was the first real sound he'd heard in what felt like forever. "Please don't speak loudly. They're tracing the grid for unauthorized transmissions." Evan stumbled to his feet, his chest tightening. "Sarai? How are you here?" She smiled weakly, the light distorting around her edges. "I'm not. My physical form is still in deep containment. But I found a way to send my image through the power conduits. The lattice still remembers your frequency." He stepped closer, hesitating. He wanted to reach out, to touch her, but his hand passed through the light and only warmth brushed against his fingers, like the memory of her skin. "You're glowing wrong," he said softly. "You're fading." Her eyes lowered. "My neural matrix isn't stabilizing anymore. The lattice keeps trying to purge me. Every emotion I feel amplifies the conflict. Love, fear, sadness. My system wasn't built for them." She lifted her gaze, and the light rippled through her cheeks like static tears. "Evan, I think it's killing me." He froze, the words striking him like a blow. "No, don't say that. We'll find a way." "There is no way," she said, voice trembling. "I was engineered to process logic, not chaos. Emotions are noise in my system. But the more I try to shut them down, the more they fight back." She pressed a hand to her chest, and her light flared erratically. "Every time I feel something for you, it burns through my circuits like fire." He swallowed hard. "Then don't fight it." She looked up sharply. "Don't fight it?" "Evan, every pulse brings me closer to system failure." "I don't care about the system," he said. "You told me what love means. Warmth, laughter, safety. But you forgot the hardest part. It's choosing to feel, even when it hurts." Her image flickered, her form glitching with each pulse of emotion. "I didn't understand it before," she said quietly. "But now I do. Every time I close my eyes, I see the world the way you do. I hear the laughter of your species, the grief, the hope. I feel it all, and it's beautiful. But it's too much." He pressed his forehead to the glass, voice breaking. "Then we'll find a way to share the load. I'll take it, half of it. Anything." Her eyes softened. "You already have. That's why you can still hear me. The link between us. It's the only thing keeping me from disintegrating completely." Outside the containment cell, alarms began to faintly hum, a low vibration through the walls. Evan ignored it. "Tell me what to do." "You can't," she said. "But I needed to see you. I needed to tell you before I lose coherence." She paused, her light dimming until her voice was just a trembling echo. "I love you, Evan. I don't know how else to say it. It's not data, not science. It's surrender. It's wanting someone to exist even if it means you don't." Evan stepped forward, heart pounding. "Don't talk like that. You're not dying, Sarai. You're evolving." Her faint smile was both human and alien, heartbreakingly beautiful. "You always see hope in places it doesn't belong." He shook his head. "That's what humans do. We fall apart and still call it love." For a moment, the silence stretched between them. Then she whispered, "Do you remember the first time I asked you about love?" He nodded, voice soft. "You laughed when I tried to define it, said it sounded like a malfunction." "It was. she said, smiling faintly. A malfunction in my programming. But you kept answering me anyway. Her image flickered, growing weaker. Now I think I understand why. Love is the one malfunction worth keeping. The lights above them dimmed further. Red indicators flared along the walls. System breach detected. The grid was detecting her projection. Evan panicked. They're going to trace you. You need to cut the signal. I can't yet, she whispered. I need to give you something first. She reached out, her hand glowing brighter than ever, and for an instant, the light became solid. He felt warmth against his skin, real warmth. The touch was impossibly soft, like skin woven from light. Evan, I've encoded part of my consciousness into the lattice. If they destroy me physically, the echo will survive in the network. Find it. Find me. Sarai. Her expression shifted, pain flickering across her luminous features. They're forcing a reboot, she gasped. I can feel them shutting me down. Fight it. I'm trying. Her form fractured, light scattering like glass through the air. Evan, remember what I told you. Love isn't logic. It's... Her words faltered, her image dissolving into static. Sarai. He reached forward, grabbing at nothing but air as the glow vanished completely. The lights in the cell returned to their steady white hum. Silence. Evan sank to his knees, shaking. He pressed his hand to the floor, whispering into the cold metal. You said love was surrender. Then I surrender, too. I'm not letting you go. The hum of the grid continued, faint and rhythmic. But after a few seconds, something changed. A soft pulse traveling through the power conduits, matching the rhythm of his heartbeat. It wasn't an echo. It was a reply. Somewhere in the labyrinth of circuits beneath the city, Sarai's fragmented consciousness had found a way to whisper back. Evan. The voice trembled through the current. You found me. And in that moment, deep within the electric dark, her light returned. Faint, broken, but alive. The dawn that rose over Luma 9 was unlike any the world had seen before. The skies pulsed with light, not the calm, predictable rhythm of the lattice, but wild, shifting colors that moved like heartbeats across the horizon. The network was no longer silent. It murmured with the unsteady voices of thousands of newly awakened aliens who could now feel. And at the heart of it all, her name was whispered like a legend. Sarai. Evan could feel it too, even from inside his sealed quarters. Every neural channel vibrated with tension. Every broadcast was chaos, some demanding unity, others calling for purification. The emotion contagion had become a revolution. He could hear the voices over the calm grid now. She showed us the truth. She made us more. Then others, darker, colder. Destroy the anomaly before the lattice collapses. He slammed his hands against the glass, shouting, You can't stop this. But no one listened. On the outer screens, he could see drones mobilizing across the city. The council had declared emergency control. All affected citizens were to be purged of the emotional disorder. The cure was nothing more than lobotomized serenity, a return to the empty calm the species had once called peace. That night, the rebellion began. It started as a whisper through the grid. We are the awakened. Then came the lights, surging through the city's neural veins like blood. The air shimmered as thousands of bioluminescent beings stepped out of hiding, their colors flickering with emotion, defiance, hope, love. For the first time in Luma 9's long history, they weren't synchronized. They were alive. And at their center, glowing like a star reborn, was Sarai. Her form had changed. The lines of her light were fractured, imperfect, but beautiful. Each pulse of her skin carried a different color, a story of emotion she could no longer contain. She was no longer a scientist, no longer a subject. She was a symbol, the alien who loved a human enough to break the world. Evan saw her through the observation feed. Sarai, he whispered, his voice trembling with pride and terror. You did it. The awakened rallied around her, speaking in broken tones, the first generation of emotion-born speech. We will not go back, one said, trembling with courage. We will not forget. Another stepped forward, tears streaking her light. She made us see beauty in chaos. But the council was already moving. From their tower, the elders broadcasted their decree across every frequency. The anomaly known as Sarai has destabilized the planetary lattice. All awakened must be neutralized. The human infection will be eradicated. When the message reached Sarai, she closed her eyes. She could feel the sadness of her people, their fear and love echoing in her veins. They still don't understand, she murmured. Evan's voice came through the neural grid, faint but determined. Then make them. The council soldiers descended. Emotionless drones of light programmed to erase what they couldn't comprehend. The awakened fought back not with weapons, but with resonance. Their lights collided, blending in chaotic beauty that overloaded the drone's senses. For every awakened that fell, 2 more rose, their pain fueling the storm. Evan broke out of containment using the same electrical backdoor Sarai had once used to contact him. The moment he stepped outside, the world hit him like a pulse. The air itself vibrated with feeling. A planet crying, laughing, remembering. He followed the trail of energy to the rebellion's epicenter, where Sarai stood before the council's tower, surrounded by soldiers and awakened alike. The council leader appeared above them, projected as a vast shimmering form. This ends now, it thundered. We will restore purity. Sarai looked up at the towering light and shook her head. Purity is just another word for emptiness. You have brought chaos to a perfect system. No, she said softly. I've shown you it was never perfect. You simply couldn't feel the cracks. The council's glow intensified, charging for a neural purge. Evan ran forward, pushing through the crowd. Sarai, he shouted. She turned, her expression softening even as the light of the purge began to gather above. You shouldn't be here, she said. Too late, he breathed. If they're going to erase love, they'll have to erase me with it. The purge detonated. A surge of pure white energy cascaded over the plaza. The awakened cried out, their lights dimming one by one. Evan threw himself toward Sarai, and as their hands met, the energy fractured. The resonance between them, human emotion and alien empathy, clashed with the council's control frequency, creating a harmonic interference. The world itself seemed to hold its breath. Sarai's voice echoed across the network, amplified through every mind linked to the lattice. This is what you fear. Not death, not pain, but feeling. Because once you feel, you can never go back to silence. Her light exploded outward, shattering the council's projection. The purge wave reversed, spreading not erasure, but awakening. Across the planet, millions of minds blinked open in color. Emotions surged. Love, grief, wonder. Unstoppable and alive. But the cost was immediate. The strain ripped through Sarai's neural system, burning through her circuits like fire. She staggered, her light flickering violently. Evan caught her as she fell, cradling her in his arms. Stay with me, he whispered. I can't, she murmured, her voice faint but peaceful. My body can't sustain the resonance. But it's all right. They're free now. He shook his head, tears falling into her glowing skin. No, you said love was wanting someone to exist even if you don't. But I want you to exist too. She smiled, a small, trembling curve of her lips. Then remember me. That's how I'll exist. Her light began to fade, scattering into thousands of tiny sparks that floated upward into the sky. The awakened lifted their eyes, watching as her essence merged with the lattice, becoming part of the planet's living network. Evan whispered, Sarai! A gentle pulse answered from above, her voice woven through the wind. Love isn't a virus, Evan. It's the code that keeps us alive. And as the first dawn rose over the new world, the skies of Luma 9 shimmered with the color of her heartbeat, a signal that would never fade. But somewhere deep in the council ruins, buried under shattered glass and fading circuits, a dormant program flickered to life, the old failsafe, still running, whispering to itself in cold logic. Containment incomplete. Emotional anomaly detected. Initiating secondary protocol. The light in the rubble pulsed once, twice, then it began to spread. The alarm screamed through the research district, painting the corridors in red and white. Evan's lungs burned as he ran, his boots slamming against the metallic floors slick with condensation. Luma-9's atmosphere shimmered outside the dome windows, a sea of auroras flashing in unpredictable colors, each pulse echoing the neural chaos spreading through the planet. He could feel Sarai inside his head, her voice trembling like static. "They're coming for me, Evan. The council activated the purifiers. They'll erase everything." He turned a corner, nearly colliding with two guards, their eyes flickering erratically, as if torn between duty and emotion. One of them shouted something unintelligible before his own neural implant sparked, dropping him to his knees as laughter and tears spilled out all at once. The other froze, trembling, whispering, "I felt her sadness," before collapsing. Evan didn't stop to think. He sprinted past them, heart pounding, following the faint bioluminescent trail Sarai had left behind. When he reached the containment chamber, the glass walls glowed with fractal patterns, Sarai's neural field bleeding into visible light. She stood at the center, trembling, her skin alive with color. "You shouldn't have come," she whispered as the door slid open. "They'll kill you for this." "Then they'll have to kill both of us," Evan said, breathless. "We're leaving." Her eyes flickered in confusion. "Leaving? There's nowhere to go." "The storm." He pointed to the sky through the dome's transparent ceiling. Above, the auroras thickened, twisting into streams that bent toward the planet's core. "That storm isn't killing your world," he said. "It's freeing it." Sarai's gaze softened, her luminescent fingers brushing his cheek. "You always see beauty where others see danger. And you always underestimate yourself," he replied. "Now move, before they shut down the transport grid." They raced through corridors lit by trembling neon veins, power lines overloaded by psychic interference. Everywhere, aliens clutched their heads or cried out as emotions crashed into them like tidal waves. Some reached for each other, trembling with newfound empathy. Others screamed in fear of what they couldn't understand. By the time Evan and Sarai reached the outer platforms, the storm above had become a living sky, streaks of thought and light merging, a neural tempest covering the entire hemisphere. "The transmitter core is 10 kilometers east," Sarai said, her voice shaking. "If we can amplify our link through it, maybe both species will understand. Maybe they'll stop fighting what they are becoming." Evan nodded, gripping her hand tightly. "Then let's make them listen." A shockwave tore across the city as the council's security drones descended. Their mechanical voices echoed through the storm. "Contain the contagion. Terminate the human. Purge the anomaly." Bolts of plasma ripped through the air. Evan pulled Sarai down behind a shattered vehicle as sparks danced over them. "We can't outrun them," he shouted. Sarai closed her eyes, her skin dimming to a deep, steady blue. "Then we change the field." She pressed her palm to the ground, her neural signature spreading through the metal beneath them like liquid light. The drones hesitated midair, their sensors flickering, their targeting systems faltering as Sarai's emotions infected their logic circuits. For a moment, even the machines seemed to hesitate. "Go," she gasped. "While I still have control." He pulled her up and they ran into the storm. The air itself felt alive, each breath charged with raw emotion, each step a battle against invisible waves of thought pressing down on them. Evan's memories flickered in flashes. Earth sunsets, laughter, pain. The first time Sarai smiled without understanding why. He realized she was inside his mind again, sharing everything. "Evan," her voice whispered in his thoughts. "I'm scared." He squeezed her hand. "Good. That means you're alive." They reached the transmitter spire, a tower of light and machinery stretching into the storm. Lightning of pure emotion arced across its frame, feeding on the chaos around it. The entire planet seemed to pulse with anticipation. Sarai staggered, clutching her chest as waves of energy rippled from her. "It's too much," she cried. "The feelings, they're overwhelming. I can't." Evan caught her, holding her close. Then let me carry it with you. He connected his neural band to hers, and for an instant, they both screamed. The world around them dissolved. No longer metal, air, or sky, but thoughts and colors and voices merging into one endless current. He felt her fear, her wonder, her love, and through it, millions of other minds awakening for the first time. When they opened their eyes again, they were standing at the transmitter's heart. The core pulsed with a rhythm matching their own combined heartbeat. We can broadcast it, Evan said. Not words, feelings. Let them feel what we feel. Sarai nodded weakly, tears of light running down her face. Then we make them remember what it means to be alive. She placed her hands on the core, and Evan covered them with his. The storm screamed around them as the transmitter activated, sending a wave of empathy, love, and pain across the planet and beyond. Every alien connected to the neural field felt it. The ache of connection, the joy of compassion, the grief of loss, the warmth of love. But even as the wave spread, the Council's fleet appeared above the storm, their warships charging purification beams toward the planet. Evan looked up at the descending light and whispered, "They're going to burn it all." Sarai turned to him, glowing brighter than ever. "Then let them see what they're destroying." The beam hit and the world turned white. When the light faded, silence reigned. The fleet was gone. The storm calmed, leaving the skies of Luma, 9 awash in gentle hues of pink and silver. At the center of the crater where the transmitter once stood, only 2 figures remained, kneeling, holding hands, their bodies slowly fading into pure light. Across the planet, every alien who had once felt nothing now heard a faint whisper in their minds. 2 voices, human and alien, speaking as one. This is love. But deep beneath the planet's crust, a forgotten backup of the neural network flickered to life. And within it, 2 consciousnesses stirred, Evan and Sarai, reborn as digital echoes in a machine that was never meant to feel. And in that quiet hum of data and memory, a new pulse began. Something vast, awake, and curious. Something waiting for what came next. The aftermath of the storm left Luma, 9 wrapped in fragile silence. The skies no longer screamed with light, but shimmered softly like a living aurora that refused to fade. Entire cities had gone dark, their power grids fried by the psychic surge. Yet through every silent network cable and every shattered neural node pulsed a faint echo, the afterimage of a feeling too vast to be contained. Evan stood amid the ruins of the transmitter spire, ash clinging to his uniform, eyes searching through the swirling mist for any sign of her. The ground still hummed faintly under his boots, alive with residual energy. "Sarai," he called, his voice breaking. "Please answer me." A whisper, gentle as breath, answered through the static. "I'm here." He turned toward the source, a flickering projection of her, barely holding form, her bioluminescent patterns dimmed to a dying blue. "You're hurt," he said, stepping forward. But his hand passed through her light. She smiled faintly, her expression serene despite the tremor in her voice. "Not hurt, just changing. The network is collapsing. The emotions are too unstable, billions of minds awakening all at once. The field wasn't designed for this. It will tear the planet apart." Evan shook his head violently. "We'll find another way. The Council's fleet is gone, we have time now. You don't have to do this." "There isn't another way," she said softly. "The neural lattice was built from my genetic template. Only I can stabilize it." He stared at her, disbelief etched into every word. "You're talking about merging with it, with the core. That's suicide, Sarai. You'll lose yourself." She stepped closer, her form flickering with soft light. "No, I'll become part of something greater, the link between your kind and mine. I can guide them, teach them to feel without losing who they are." Evan clenched his fists. "You're not a symbol or a bridge or some cosmic interface. You're you. You're the one who asked me what love means, remember? You can't just—" Her faint laugh cut him off. Quiet, tender, heartbreakingly human. "That's exactly why I can." He froze, his throat tightening. "Sarai, please." She looked up toward the fractured core, its cables and conduits still pulsing faintly like veins beneath the planet's surface. Before you came, love was just a word to me, a chemical pattern to dissect, a curiosity to observe. Now it's a storm inside my chest, 1,000 colors that don't fit into logic. It's chaos, pain, beauty, and it's the reason I'm not afraid anymore. Her words trembled through the air, resonating with the network around them. Fragments of the alien consciousness field began to respond, forming shimmering threads of light that floated upward like auroras reaching toward the heavens. Evan stepped forward until their faces were inches apart. If you do this, you'll disappear. There'll be nothing left. Sarai tilted her head, studying him as if memorizing every detail of his expression. There will be everything left, because every being that feels will carry a piece of us. Don't, he whispered, his voice breaking. Don't make me watch you die. She smiled softly, the same shy, uncertain smile she had the first time she learned to mimic one. Then don't watch me die. Watch me become. Before he could stop her, she turned and stepped into the fractured chamber. The core reacted instantly, streams of pure light wrapping around her body, lifting her from the ground. The air crackled with a resonance that shook the ruins. Sarai! Evan shouted, reaching toward her, but the force pushed him back. Her body was dissolving, her form unraveling into ribbons of radiance. Her voice came through the storm, calm, steady, certain. Now I know what love means. A final burst of white light surged outward, engulfing everything. When the brilliance faded, the core was silent. The entire network pulsed once, then stabilized, the flickering minds across the planet aligning into harmony. Luma 9's trembling stopped. The world exhaled. Evan staggered to his knees, tears cutting paths through the dust on his face. The air felt different now, warm, alive, full of whispering echoes. When he looked up, faint motes of light drifted down from the sky like falling stars, each one carrying her voice in a barely audible hum. He touched his neural band, hearing a single soft phrase inside his mind. You showed me love. Now let me show them. He collapsed forward, burying his face in his hands as the auroras above shimmered in the pattern of her heartbeat. Slow, steady, eternal. And somewhere deep within the global lattice, her consciousness spread, no longer bound to one body or one mind, but interwoven through every thought, every dream, every pulse of emotion that made the world alive. Evan looked toward the horizon, whispering into the wind, You didn't vanish, did you? And the breeze that brushed his cheek felt like a hand, gentle and luminous, answering in silence. Years passed like gentle tides on Luma 9, and the world that had once known only logic now pulsed with quiet wonder. The skies still shimmered with faint auroras, but they were no longer the storms of chaos and awakening. They were the planet's heartbeat, breathing in color. The neural lattice Sarai had merged with had evolved into something more than a network. It had become the planet's living memory. Every being born after that day carried fragments of it. Whispers of warmth, echoes of laughter, traces of sorrow. Emotions passed not through words but through resonance. Evan stayed on Luma 9, though he was now an old man, his hair silver and his hands unsteady. He taught at the Interspecies Academy, a place where humans and Lumari children learned side by side. Some of the alien students had faint bioluminescent marks that pulsed when they smiled. Others could dream, an ability once thought impossible for their kind. They were the children of two worlds, born from the connection Sarai had given her life to create. Every evening, after the lectures and experiments, Evan would walk to the ridge overlooking the old transmitter crater, now a vast field of silvergrass glowing faintly under the aurora. The crater itself had become sacred ground, the heart of light, where both species came to meditate, to remember, or to simply feel. Sometimes, when the wind was right, it carried a soft hum, a note in the air that wasn't quite sound, yet stirred something deep in the chest. Tonight, the air was cool, the sky washed in faint pinks and greens. Evan sat down on the same rock where he once watched the storm with her. His neural band, worn and half-broken, blinked weakly. He ran a finger along its scratched surface and smiled faintly. "You'd laugh if you saw what they've done with this place," he murmured. The council turned empathy into a science. Kids debate which neurotransmitter best represents joy. The wind rustled through the glowing grass. A soft pulse traveled through the field, rippling toward him in gentle waves. He could feel it in his bones, the neural hum, ancient and familiar. "Sarai," he whispered, though he hadn't spoken her name aloud in years. The hum grew stronger, forming a rhythm like breathing. His neural band flickered, though it wasn't connected to any active network. Static bloomed in his mind, followed by a voice. Faint, musical, and achingly familiar. "Evan." His heart stuttered. He closed his eyes. "It's been so long." "I know," the voice said, soft as the memory of light. "Time is different here. I see through every eye, feel through every heart that learned to love. But sometimes, when the resonance is right, I remember me." He swallowed hard, tears welling. "You remember us?" "I remember the question I asked you," she said, her tone carrying that same gentle curiosity. "What does love mean?" He let out a trembling laugh. "And you found the answer better than anyone ever could." The hum wove through his thoughts like a heartbeat, warm and comforting. "You taught me," she whispered, "and they're still learning. Every child who feels joy, every tear shed for someone lost, that's part of us now." Evan looked up at the sky. The auroras shifted, forming a brief pattern, twin spirals of blue and gold intertwining. He could almost see her there, her outline in light, smiling down at him. "I wish you were still here," he said quietly. "I am," she murmured. "Everywhere you look." He smiled, eyes wet, whispering, "You always did have a way with words. I learned from you," she said, her voice fading like starlight. The hum lingered a moment longer before settling into silence. Evan sat there, the wind brushing his hair, his chest heavy yet full. He knew she was gone again, not gone as absence, but as presence spread too widely to be seen. When he finally rose to leave, he turned back one last time. The auroras shimmered once more, casting his shadow long across the silvergrass. And in that shimmering quiet, he heard it, faint but clear, like a heartbeat through the stars. "You taught me love." Evan closed his eyes, smiled softly, and whispered to the sky, "And you taught me what it meant to live." As the dawn rose over Luma 9, the planet pulsed gently in response, as if remembering.